Will Donald Trump be found guilty? Yes or no? In this video, we are going to analyze exactly what the key argument, the crux of this case is. It's actually very simple to follow. And in this video, you're going to learn exactly what to pay attention to. Take a look at this right here on screen. If the affair between Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels happened, the payment that was made from Michael Cohen and then was reimbursed from Donald Trump may violate business record laws. And that payment may also then violate campaign finance laws. That's how you get to a Class E felony, one crime contributing to another crime. That dual effect there is how they are trying to get Trump with a felony. Otherwise, each of these individually would be misdemeanors. But because one might lead to the other, that sort of compounding effect could create it as a Class E felony, the lowest level of felony in New York. Now, if the affair is false, then the payment probably does not violate business records. It is very simple to argue that if you're paying somebody to shut up about a false story, you are doing so on behalf of keeping the brand stable of the Trump organization. It'd be an advertising expense, or maybe it'd be a legal expense. You could almost really justify categorizing this however you want, and it'd be very difficult to argue that somebody was guilty of even a misdemeanor for miscategorizing this if the story is indeed false. If the story is indeed false, then it probably also doesn't violate campaign finance laws since it was frankly fake news. So this jury of 12 with 6 alternates needs to deliberate. Is Donald Trump guilty or not of a Class E felony? And the jury basically needs to start with, did the affair happen or not? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a summary of what the witnesses said, and then I'm going to give you my opinion. My opinion is not designed to be political. Look, yes, I ran for governor. I know a little bit about campaign finance law. I work with our in-house counsel all the time on legal issues, and let me tell you, I'm just the dude on the internet. I'm going to give you some perspective, and I think it's a useful summary. If you like it, consider subscribing. So, what did we hear from witnesses? Well, we heard from David Pecker that he was the eyes and ears of the Trump campaign over at the National Enquirer. This had a lot to do with we're going to catch the story and kill it. We're not going to run the story. Ronna Greff was the assistant for Donald Trump, and she testified that she saw Stormy Daniels in Trump Tower. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump had sex. Keep in mind, each one of these is going to relate back to whether or not we think Donald Trump actually had an affair with Stormy Daniels or not. So David Pecker's testimony doesn't really help us figure this out. Ronna's, maybe. It's kind of like, what's Stormy Daniels doing there? Did they just have lunch? Were they talking about being on The Apprentice? Stormy Daniels did testify that Donald Trump wanted Stormy Daniels to be on The Apprentice so she could prove that she's not just some dumb blonde bimbo. Those were Stormy Daniels' words. Okay, when she suggested that she wouldn't be good on the business show, Donald Trump suggested maybe because he runs the show, he could give her some hints. Again, that's all coming from Stormy Daniels' testimony. It could all be nonsense. Then we had Gary. Gary just created some bank accounts to transfer money for the hush money payments and the reimbursements to Michael Cohen or via Michael Cohen. It doesn't tell us if the affair happened or not, so that testimony is kind of useless. Robert Browning verified that Donald Trump said on a campaign speech that the allegations against him could lose him the election. But honestly, I don't think anybody disputes that. It still doesn't tell us whether or not Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels had an affair. So who cares? Remember, this all comes down to whether or not that affair happened or not. Because if it didn't happen, none of the case matters. If it did happen, the case matters. Philip Thompson from Esquire took a deposition of Jean Carroll. Why this person's even a list on the sort of witness list doesn't even really matter in my opinion. Keep in mind there are 6 alternate juries. Sometimes people get confused by jurors. Sometimes people get confused by alternate jurors. They think that like, oh, what are you going to swap out jurors until you get the answer you want? And they think that alternate jurors are just designed to sort of prevent a hung jury. Which, remember, in a court, a criminal trial, you have 12 jurors. They have to all unanimously agree to find Donald Trump guilty. That's the standard, beyond a reasonable doubt. Just one person saying, no thanks. Keep in mind, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, there's a lawyer on the jury. Keep in mind, one person says, nah, I don't have enough beyond a reasonable doubt confidence. Donald Trump's not guilty. Like, that's your standard here. The 6 alternate jurors, which people ask about, they're alternates. They're designed to be there in the event that somebody has like a heart attack or goes into cardiac arrest or has some form of, family emergency or whatever, for some reason can no longer participate. And then the judge would have to basically say, hey, we are officially replacing you of your duty with somebody else. These alternates don't actually get to listen to the deliberations, and it's extremely rare that an alternate gets placed in. I don't even know why that's circulating in social media, but it is. Some people think it's just to, make sure they get Trump with the votes they want. I mean, some of those that's possible, but that's not how the system's designed. But then again, we've learned a lot about the system during COVID and afterwards. Anyway, Keith Davidson reiterated that Michael Cohen, made the payment out of his pocket. And this is actually because Cohen testified himself that this is really important. And people wonder, like, if this was so important, is that because the affair is true? Did the affair happen? Michael Cohen, why were you recording Donald Trump? Now, at no point did Michael Cohen record Donald Trump saying, yeah, I had sex with Stormy Daniels. There was simply talk about how to pay off Stormy Daniels, which again, if the affair never happened, it's sort of just like extortion, and that's bad on Stormy Daniels' part, but we still don't have enough evidence to say, oh yeah, Donald Trump definitely had an affair with her. The recording doesn't help. Michael Cohen really felt that the Stormy Daniels allegation was really bad and really bad for the campaign in general. So he allegedly, and as he testifies, fronted the payment to Stormy Daniels, and then it got reimbursed in $35,000 payments to Michael Cohen. This is why we have multiple of these payments going back to Michael Cohen to reimburse him, not just for the actual payment, but also to gross him up, which is basically a way of saying, hey, you're gonna have to pay taxes on that money. We kind of want to cover it up a little bit. So you pay taxes on it. I'll pay you a little bit more. So let's say Michael Cohen has to pay 30% in taxes. You divide $130,000 by 0.7, basically he'd be grossed up to about $185,000. Okay, that's a little sus. Like, why would you have to gross him up? Why do we have to do it in sort of increment reimbursements? If this is truly just a fake news story, then why increments? I mean, Donald Trump had enough money, and so this is probably the weakest part for Donald Trump. Hope Hicks flips on this and says, no, Donald Trump is a family man. And Sally Franklin says Trump is very frugal, but even though bookkeepers like Rebecca, who testified, would take checks to Donald Trump to sign himself for even minute expenses, he was very much in control. The director of Oval Office operations mentioned that sometimes Donald Trump isn't really attentive when he's signing these checks, that sometimes he's distracted. So it's really hard to say that just because Donald Trump signed multiple checks that he had an affair with Stormy Daniels. And listening to testimony from Sally Franklin, McConney about the payments, Hope Hicks, Trump being a family man, none of these things really matter to the root of the problem here. Was there sex or not? That's what this comes down to. Now, Daniel Dixon verifies that there are phone records between Cohen and Trump, but who cares? That doesn't really do much good for us. And Cohen, while he did think this was a disaster for the campaign, we don't know if Michael Cohen knew that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels, or if he was just trying to solve the allegations. It's entirely possible that Michael Cohen does not have any idea. And Michael Cohen's like, this, I don't even want to know if it happened or not. We just need to cover it up. I could imagine that sort of conversation happening. But again, when we're imagining things, we can't say, oh yeah, somebody's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, the vast majority of this testimony is mostly worthless. The biggest testimony here is, why was there a gross up of those payments to Michael Cohen, and why were they done in little increments? That's probably the biggest issue for Trump, along with Stormy Daniels' personal testimony. But Stormy Daniels then goes on to say that she blacked out at one point. She doesn't really remember all of the details. And when she was testifying, she was deemed to be, about the sex that occurred, she was deemed to be nervous and going into exceptional detail and not very confident. And then the next, mind you, she's also said she would love to see Donald Trump in jail. And so why was she so nervous if she remembered this? It's just the awkward crux of the court hearing, or what was it? Then the next day, when Stormy Daniels continued her testimony about unrelated things like The Apprentice or otherwise, she was actually very confident and chill and not nervous. So is she nervous when she's lying, or is she confident when she's lying? Well, most people are nervous when they're lying. And so, to me, I think there is enough blurriness in this case to make it very difficult to say that 12 people are going to find Donald Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Is there even an 80% chance that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels? Yes, of course, there is that chance. But is that beyond a reasonable doubt? No. Would it be enough to find Donald Trump potentially guilty via the preponderance of evidence in a civil case? Yeah, maybe. Sort of like O.J. Simpson, right? Not to compare Trump to O.J., but guilty on the civil case, or, found at fault on the civil case, and not guilty on the criminal case, because of that standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. But what's at stake here is Donald Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? And my answer to that is no. It is going to be very difficult to find Donald Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And as a result of this, I actually think there is a good chance that a ticker symbol DJT, which is Donald Trump's basically social media brand, Truth Social, could have a very solid chance of sort of exploding upward on a not guilty verdict. Now, this is not personalized financial advice. Yes, I send alerts to everybody in my Stocks and Psychology of Money group for trading ideas that we have, but these are ideas. I don't trade for you. This morning, my trading P&L was somewhere around $61,000 for the day. I was trading with about 60K. And year to date, we're up over $1 million on a $1 million account, which is freaking awesome. So we're killing it with the trade alerts, but there's no guarantee that those trades will continue. There's no guarantee that you'll be able to make money. So let me know what you think about the Trump trial in the comments down below. If you have questions about the courses on building your wealth, go to meetkevin.com. Go check out with any questions that you have. Email us at staff@meetkevin.com, or just check out on the courses at meetkevin.com. We got a coupon code expiring Friday. Appreciate you being here. Let me know what you think. And am I right to think that there's a possibility that DJT could do a little spiky dude law in the event Donald Trump is found not guilty? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, what else do we know? Well, going over to ehack.com, we've got a few things here. This is sort of the path of where we sit now, jury instruction. The judge did give a instruction that this is not a referendum on your views of President Trump, and instead, we have to embody the level of reasonable doubt. This is very important. This isn't on how you voted or you will vote in the election. This is about, is Donald Trump guilty or not? Again, in my opinion, this all comes down to, did they have an affair or not? I understand sometimes people leave me comments, they're like, Kevin, it doesn't matter if they had an affair or not. That's okay. It's okay to have that opinion, but it's not my opinion. My opinion's very clear. If the affair is true, then you can start getting into some of the records and all these other things. But see, my opinion is the affair won't be found true beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, the affair is false. Therefore, Donald Trump is innocent, right? That's the way you have to look at it. No affair beyond a reasonable doubt. What does that equal? When we type that down, no affair beyond a reasonable doubt equals innocent. You don't even have to discuss the rest of this stuff. It all comes down to that one thing to me. Now, Donald Trump, of course, is yelling in caps here, the greatest case I've ever seen for reliance on counsel, and Judge Murcon will not, for whatever reason, let me use that as a defense in this rigged trial. Another term, advice of counsel defense. This is essentially arguing that, like, hey, if you have an attorney, they shouldn't be testifying against you. And so Donald Trump is making this argument that this is very frustrating. Now, keep in mind, deliberations can go to very, very different, various different lengths. GPT, for example, tells us that a criminal trial could take 1 to 3 days. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard took over deliberated over the course of 13 hours, which took 3 actual calendar days. Obviously, then you have to, like, if they do find him guilty, it's going to take longer to determine, okay, which of the counts is Donald Trump guilty of? Because I don't think that's going to happen, I actually think a decision will be made very quickly. About 1 in 4 Republicans said they would not vote for Donald Trump if he is found guilty of a felony. You know, but what's interesting about this is I think 1 in 4 Republicans aren't going to vote for Donald Trump anyway, because there's some Republicans who are never Trumpers. So that is something to consider, right? So I don't know how much this actually changes people's interest in voting for Donald Trump or not. Now, obviously, the idea of having a felon as president is going to weigh on some people. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Remember, meetkevin.com, coupon expires Friday.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is not personalized advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show shall not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services we may benefit from. I also personally operate an actively managed ETF. I may personally hold or otherwise hold long or short positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuer other than HouseHack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Make sure if you're considering investing in HouseHack to always read the PPM at househack.com.